Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the sixth house in astrology. Now, first off, as far as what the sixth house rules, it governs physical health, hygiene, the daily routine, an aunt, an uncle, work, employment, even worry and service, and also pets, even. Now, it's all the first thing you're going to do when you look at your sixth house, look at the sign that is on the cusp of it. Now, my example, mine is in Libra, and like for me, the Libra rules lower back, and I've had issues with my lower back. I have a protruding or bulging disc in it. Sixth house is also connected with our daily routine, so I guess I can incorporate a little intellectual sociability in my daily routine, given that I have Libra on the cusp of it. It could also indicate that I could do something Libra related as far as employment goes, even though I don't, which could be something like, say, for example, working with the law or some occupation with the lower back, like a chiropractor, or doing something with art or arbitration negotiation. Now, other people that have Libra on the cusp of the sixth house may be doing something Libra related as far as their employment goes. I had an affinity for art when I was younger. I used to like to draw superhero type of figures and characters. I used to draw Spider-Man, and so it was something that could have been potentially what I could have done, but I did not do it. But anyway, the thing about this, and sometimes it could even reflect an aunt or an uncle, because it might be somebody, like in my case, I have Libra on the cusp of the sixth house, and the sixth house, generally, when you're looking at it, it's the siblings of the less dominant parent, which is often the mother, and the sibling, a sister of my mother, is actually a Libra sun, and her sun is like very early Libra. I have Libra on my sixth house cusp. It is 4 degrees Libra, so interesting how that played out. Now, it's also important to see if the house inhabits any planets. Now, I have Uranus and Jupiter in Libra in the sixth house. They're not conjunct, but they're both in the sixth house. Now, the thing about it is how that may manifest with me having Uranus well, almost exactly conjunct my sixth house in the sixth house. I think that is a strong indicator of why I'm able to incorporate astrology in the daily routine. And another thing is that it also can indicate as well some instability or having some kind of erratic or sporadic schedule and work. And when I did work, like when I was at Kmart, when I worked like as a floater there, I was working all different hours, and it shows it could show lack of consistency in employment. Now, the fact that I have Jupiter in Libra in the sixth house on the positive end, this could be being lucky by simply being fair, by being equitable, by being able to compromise in the day and being in the sixth house of the daily routine, and uh, and also about cooperation. It can enlarge cooperation with fellow employees, in which, of course, being Jupiter could be very fortuitous by doing so. So I would say that that definitely was accurate for me when I did work with when I worked with people at my places of employment. Now, another thing too is looking at this as well. But at the same time, Jupiter in Libra, sometimes, as I've stated before, Jupiter could be very paradoxical, could be very strongly benign and benevolent, but also have a tendency to enlarge and expand. And I've had issues where it makes an inconjunct to my ascendant on top of it, where I've had enlarged issues, you could say, with the lower back. And when I was little, I was diagnosed with a hypoglycemia. So what I want to say is also it's important to see if there are any aspects that are made to the sixth house cusp or planets that are in it. Now, going back, I did state before that I have Jupiter making an inconjunct aspect to my ascendant. And when you're talking about inconjuncts in astrology, they could often be about health-related issues. It could be some kind of a debilitation. And the thing about this is as well, and I did have, and I still do have issues with my lower back. And again, Jupiter can enlarge and expand. I mean, it's very benign and benevolent. It's very beneficial, but it can enlarge issues and sometimes negative ones. Now, and also too, the fact that Jupiter also, remember that by itself, Jupiter does rule like the liver, and you're talking about like the thighs, and I mean, and so it can be about issues that can be associated with Jupiter that I have to be careful of because it is in my sixth house of health. So anyway. Now, another thing is, it's also, another thing I was going to talk about, I have Mercury in Cancer making a square to my sixth house, Uranus and Libra in the sixth house. I mean, Uranus and Libra is in the sixth house, but my Mercury in Cancer makes a square to it. So I think when you're talking about aspects in astrology, you're talking about the relationship between one planet and another. And the fact that Mercury is making a square to my Uranus and Libra, I've told people before about having irrevocable extensive nerve damage. Uranus can be connected with the nerves. Uranus is in my sixth house of health, but the square to Mercury certainly doesn't help. And I think that plays a role in the fact that I have issues, extensive nerve damage to my hands and arms. Mercury rules the hands and the arms. It was exacerbated when I was working at a restaurant. The zodiac sign Cancer can be associated with restaurants. So anyway, now another thing to look at, it's important to look and see where the ruler of the sixth house falls, and what house does the ruler of the sixth house fall in your natal chart. Now, mine, with me, of course, I have Libra on the cusp of the sixth house, so the ruler of the sixth house is Venus. Venus falls in my fourth house in my natal chart. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, so when you're talking about chart rulers and what house they fall in, you're basically, it can be an amalgamation of that energy, a blending of that energy with one house to the other. But what it is when you're talking about, in this example, the ruler of the sixth house, wherever the planet was from, basically, that's where you're bringing the energy from. In this example, okay, my ruler of my sixth house falls in my fourth house. That ruler, Venus, that's where I'm bringing the energy from, in this example, from the sixth house. It's going into the fourth house. So it indicates that is, I'm bringing a lot of that sixth house kind of organization, cleaning into my home life. My work ethic is injected into my home life. The chart, that ruler of the sixth house is Venus and Leo. So it shows that there's a lot of dignity, a lot of pride that may be associated with that as well. So basically, what it is when you're talking about rulers of houses, it's really what happens is the ruler of I guess you could say the ruler of the house. That is where the energy is basically coming from, and where it actually in what house that ruler falls in, that is where you're basically depositing that energy into. That's basically what you're how it actually works. But anyway, now the next thing I want to talk about is transits to the sixth house can be significant as well, because they may bring on very spontaneous, unanticipated events that may occur and transpire. Let's say, for example, if somebody has a transit Pluto in their sixth house, and especially say it's making an inconjunct aspect to their ascendant, and it's making like an adverse aspect to their sun and or Mars, that could manifest in Pluto-related, health-related issues. It could be issues like something with the bladder or the prostate or the reproductive system, anything that could be colon, anything that could be Pluto related. It could be a time um, where you're making a say, I mean, it could be a transformation in health. If Pluto, a transit Pluto is in the sixth house, those are some ways that can manifest on Pana. Could be dealing with even though it's a long transit, it still could be some unanticipated things that may transpire. I mean, if you have a faster moving planet, say like the sun is transit sun is in the sixth house, that could simply be during that duration that you're putting a focus on health related matters. Or maybe there's like, say if it's transit sun in Aquarius in your sixth house, that could be that focus on some kind of Aquarius type employment, such as innovation, astronomy, astrology, computers, electronics. Sometimes it could even indicate an eye issue because the sun rules either the left or right eye depending on gender. If it's an Aquarius, it could be more like of an intermittent type of issue, as an example. So there's a lot of ways. I mean, there's a multitude of ways these transits can actually manifest. And now, last but not least, progressions that involve the sixth house they can manifest in issues related to the house, but they're often going to be more prolonged and protracted. In contrast to transits, and they have a little bit, I would say, a little bit more planned energy as opposed to transits, which are a little bit more, I'd say, spontaneous on average. If you have, let's say, for example, if you have let's say in the progressed chart that the South Node is conjunct Uranus in the sixth house. South Node in astrology can reflect what we're going away from. It could be where you might be going away from an erratic or sporadic type of daily routine or worry that might be hitting you on and off, or maybe it's you're tired of dealing with some maybe an overly eccentric or maybe bizarre aunt or uncle or someone prominent in your daily routine. And also those are some ways. It could be even going through some kind of selfless service that you might have been giving to others as well. I mean, those are some ways that could manifest and pan out at this, as far as that example goes. So anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.